Welcome to the Munro Review, where it's all about connecting, sharing, and valuing the arts in the central San Joaquin Valley. I'm Donald Munro. Today is January 27th, and it's great to be here in the CMAC studio. On today's show, we have some wonderful guests. We talked to Jesse Merrell of Spectrum Art Gallery, who is the curator of an important fundraising auction that we'll learn more about. And we will spend some time talking about my top 20 list for 2021, including an interview with one of the best performers of the year. But first, let's take a look at what I've been covering on MunroReview.com. I've spent a lot of the month reporting about the impact of Omicron, unfortunately. Arts groups have gone to tremendous lengths to keep doors open during this latest wave of the COVID-19 crisis. Both Selma Arts Center and Good Company Players have been hit hard. Selma at first postponed its production of the SpongeBob musical in hopes of having enough well cast members for an opening, but producers ultimately decided to shut down the production until the summer. At Good Company, months on end delayed its opening a week, and Guys and Dolls first postponed for a week, then 2 days after that. Both productions have been able to resume, but it's been difficult. The biggest problem has been performers having to call out sick because of positive COVID-19 tests. A positive result sets a countdown clock for when that performer can return. Good Company Players has been able to keep their shows running using understudies, but there are a limited number of substitutes who can step in for certain roles. Also hit by the Omicron wave, the Fresno Philharmonic canceled its January 16th Masterworks concert. This would have been the first performance back in the Soroyan Theater for 2 years. There have been more developments on the Tower Theater story. If you recall, a group of theater lovers is fighting against the sale of the iconic landmark to a conservative church. On January 19th, an appellate court sided with opponents of the case. The complicated case gets down into the weeds of real estate law, but the gist is that efforts to block the church sale are still very much alive. You can read much more at MunroReview.com. I also wrote a piece about the Fresno Master Chorale, which teamed up with the League of Women Voters to premiere a song commemorating the 100th anniversary of a woman's right to vote. It's weird to think that women have only been able to vote for 100 years, right? Embedded in my story is a YouTube video with a special video production of the song. Now, let's get to my first guest. Jesse Merrell is curator at Spectrum Art Gallery, the premier place for photography in the greater Fresno area. He's here to talk about the gallery and an annual event that's coming up that's not only essential for the nonprofit cooperative gallery, but also your chance to peruse and purchase some phenomenal works of art. Welcome, Jesse. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Donald. Appreciate it.
To start off, a lot of people know where Spectrum is. They probably pass it on Olive in the Tower District, but they might not know much about it. So tell us, what is Spectrum? How long has it been around, and why is it there?
Yeah, so Spectrum Art Gallery has existed for about 40 years. We celebrated our 40th anniversary, actually at the height of COVID in 2020, but 1980 is when we were put together. And we've moved a couple of times, but we found a permanent home in the heart of the Tower District at 608 East Olive. We're right next to Piemonte's Deli, which is also kind of a Tower staple, and the Clock Shop. And it's been an evolving organization where really what we do is we want to promote and foster photography, not just as its documentarian approach, but also as an art form, where a lot of times you get this back and forth, is photography documentarian or is it art? And I think it's both, and I think most of our members agree that. But also to incorporate in community involvement, getting the public in our community involved in photography and appreciating photography, not only as its documentarian approach, but also as an art form. And
so you have shows that you put on, and so every month you have either one or two?
We typically have one or two, sometimes three photographers that show up at the same time, and then we also have group shows. Once a year, we do invite an outside artist to allow us to bring what the rest of the country is doing in photography to our little area in the Central Valley. And that allows us to expose our community to a broader range of different types of art.
Now, the members of Spectrum, can you find different types of photographers?
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting because we call ourselves Spectrum Art Gallery because we are a full spectrum of members. Our gallery consists of photographers that are young, fresh out of high school in photography, beginners, all the way to very well-established photographers, noted and published photographers. We've also look at not just gelatin silver, old process photography, or not really old process, it's still kind of the standard, digital photography, and things that I do, which is considered alternative experimental and processes like the old cyanotypes, salt printing, and things like that. So yeah, we're a wide range of photography, and we go from straight shots all the way to ones that have been constructed. Ultimately, what it comes down to is as long as it begins with a photograph, what you come up with, whether it be sculpture, we have a photographer who embeds his images in glass frit, and it's a glass piece, but it's a photograph.
I'm not even sure what that word is. What is it? How do you spell that?
Frit.
Frit.
Yeah, F-R-I-T. It's
F-R-I-T.
it's just colored glass, fine grain, that's screen printed onto an image and then kiln fired until it's baked into it. But it started as a photograph.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's absolutely unique work.
So you mentioned digital photography.
Absolutely.
And we are now in this digital age where I would imagine there are billions of photos taken every day. What has that proliferation of photography meant for more serious photographers?
You know, a lot of serious photographers will always look at the print as the final result. Certainly, everyone with a phone nowadays is a photographer. And even if you don't have Photoshop skills, filters allow us to do some fantastic things. And it's great. We've had exhibitions where 100% of the work was captured and edited on cell phone. I think it just opens up the doors to new ways of interpreting a process that we all know and love. So it's impacted us, certainly, but film is not dead, the print is not dead. It still is strong, going strong, and people are interested. And as long as people love that art form, then it'll keep going.
And it's probably opened up a lot of eyes to what a photo can be. Once you start taking photos, you have probably more of an appreciation.
Yeah, you know, what I'm finding, because I also teach at Fresno State College photography, and what I found is a lot of students learn through digital, and they're excited about the digital. And then they find out how they used to do. They talk about film, and now they're enthusiastic about film. And they find out about the older processes and how they have to mix the chemistry and hand coat themselves. And so it just keeps going. Some people, they learn from digital, but they don't stay there.
So you have a couple of interesting events coming up. In February, you're holding a members exhibition. It sounds like kind of a good way to get a feel for a lot of different styles.
Absolutely. It's a great way to get acquainted with our organization. You'll see a whole variety of work across the spectrum from our members, and on our opening, you'll have a number of our members there to be able to connect with. And so if you see something that's like, this is my lane, this is what I like, that photographer could be there for you to actually talk about that and really expand that. And that's one of the joys of being a member at Spectrum, is that it's a community, and it's a forum for us to connect with, learn from, and expand our abilities and what we do.
If you're interested in buying the pieces, are they all for sale or just some of them? How does that work?
Unless a specific artist has listed them as not for sale, which does happen. I know I've done it myself. If there's something that I put my heart and soul in, it's one of a kind, and I just can't let it go, then yeah, it happens. But for the most part, almost everything would be available.
Now, the month after that, in March, you have your annual print auction, and this is actually a big fundraiser for the gallery.
Biggest fundraiser, actually. It accounts for a good 30 to 40% of our annual income, depending on how well we do. And so it's really, really important. Sometimes the biggest support we get from our outside community are donations of amazing prints that do really well. It's a way for art collectors in the Valley, and actually beyond, now that we've gone onto an online platform, to collect works that, again, it's, when it comes to digital photography, we still look at the print, the final print, as the result of the culmination of what our education and our processing and our talent has brought us to, ends up in that print. And it's a way to acquire those works at any level.
Can you tell us about a couple of the images that are going to be part of the auction?
Yeah, so we have a couple of images actually from one of our long-standing members, Jim Kernan. Jim Kernan, I think a lot of people have probably seen his work a lot throughout the Central Valley. He is a black and white photographer, mostly, and you may have seen him at some point in time, usually in the middle of the night during foggy days, photographing trains with, believe it or not, a 4x5 camera. Ones you have to put the blanket over your head and photograph that way.
Wow.
And then he would scan the negative digitally and then work it that way and then print them out that way. So looking at old processing and brought it into the digital format as well. And so we have a couple of works from Jim, actually. And if you've ever seen a photograph, not just a photograph done at night, but a photograph done at night in the fog.
And I've tried to take a photo in the fog, and it's really hard. It's like, I can see how that can be a really difficult
With photography, all we do is control light. That's all we do. So it's manipulating light when it's just bouncing off of everything.
And anything else you can
so
highlight?
There's also another image, actually, that I'm donating myself. It's called Family. It is an old process. Well, it's actually an experimental process, not old. It's called lumen printing. And they're basically sycamore leaves that I've done as a study. And they're colored images, but the paper is black and white. And one of the things in this experimental process called lumen printing is if you expose or solarize objects on black and white paper, depending on the silver content, you'll actually get color results as it just burns through the object. So, so that's one of the ones. The interesting thing about it is no matter what you do, even if you have exactly the same thing, if you use a negative, you'll never get the same image twice. So each one is always going to be unique.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us, give us some dates. So the members exhibition, that's February.
February 3rd. These are actually, the dates are easy right now because they're always in alignment. So February 3rd is our member show.
Okay.
And we will have that throughout the whole gallery. And then in March, it'll be March 3rd at 5 o'clock is our opening for the auction. And that will run all the way until April 3rd.
So you can actually come down to the gallery and look at the works that are available.
That is 100% dependent upon any mandates, which is why we have the multiple platform.
Right.
But yes, as long as we are able
Fingers
to be
crossed.
Open, exactly. As long as we have the ability to open, we will be open. Spectrum is observing the best safety protocols. If you happen to forget your mask, we do have them available. And honestly, I will say one thing about that is we've heard so much about challenges with visitors and people who have challenged a lot of the status quo when it comes to mandates and requirements. I will say that Fresno has an amazing community within its arts community. We have not had any challenges with any visitors being respectful of the protocols. And so we continue to appreciate our community support, and not just with supporting photography, supporting the gallery, but supporting the health and safety of our entire community. So we're very thankful for that.
Well, that's great. That is really great to hear. And I'll just put in another pitch for people to go down and see the member show, go to the auction. it's a great way of kind of opening up your world a little bit, especially if you're one of those iPhone photographers who is actually maybe interested in photography. It's like maybe that's the next step, that you can take, and it's like this whole different world.
Yeah, and again, we have a lot of photographers that get churned out. They've learned, they do great on their phones, or they've gone through a program, and then they don't know where to go from there. And so Spectrum is a great place to start. It's a great community of photographers, so much talent there. But not just that. We're artists, so we are also an organization of vanity, so we show our work. So not only can they show work at Spectrum as a member, but as a member we also have our satellite exhibitions. We have 2 of them at the Fresno Yosemite Air Terminal. We also have them at the River Center. Over the next 5 years, I think we have it annually there. And then, of course, at Fresno City Hall. And we're going to continue to expand that. We want to get art out there in the public and in front of people. And it's a great way for those to be able to, who are unsure of the process of getting work submitted. We'll walk you through it. That's just what we do. We're a learning organization as well as an organization for well-established artists.
Well, sounds good. Maybe we inspired some budding photographers
Absolutely.
Today. Well, thank you, Jesse, for coming by. You can find out more about Spectrum Art Gallery by going to the website, and that is spectrumphotogallery.com.
.org.
So moving on. I love putting together my annual top 20 list. It's a tradition I started at the Fresno Bee and one that I've enthusiastically continued at the Munro Review. Yes, 2020 was not a normal arts year. Then again, what is normal these days? I'm just thrilled that 2021 opened up enough to let us once again experience live performance and live cultural opportunities, even if you had to wear a mask. So what I'm going to do right now is go through my top 20 list, and then we have a special treat for you afterward. And so here is my list. Shawn Williams in Elf, Good Company Players. Chris Colfer in All Together Now, Good Company Players. The Line at Fresno City College. Matilda, Children's Musical Theater Works. This Is Our Youth at Fresno State. Hashtag Text Show on the Internet, part of the 2021 Rogue Festival. Zoot Suit at Selma Art Center. And Suddenly with the Angels, a concert by Coro Piccolo. Kevin Cooper's American Originals, Agave Baroque. The Nutcracker, Central California Ballet. Christmas Voices, a concert by Soli Deo Gloria. The Eternal Question, a concert by the Tower Quartet. The Memorial Concert for Jack Fortner by the Orpheus Chamber Ensemble. Norma by California Opera. Garrick Olson for keyboard concerts. Joyce Yang performing with the Fresno Philharmonic. Nobody Promised You Tomorrow, Art 50 Years After Stonewall at Fresno State. No Time to Waste, The Progressors. Ebony Zierl and Heather Anderson, a joint show at Fig Tree Gallery. And finally, the Tower Theater protests. So, very exciting. I am going to check in with the guy at the top of the list, Shawn Williams. I described him in his role of Buddy the Elf as like a hummingbird on caffeine. And we're going to do that by Zoom. There he is, Buddy the Elf.
Hey, Donald.
You get the month of January off, huh?
Well, half
when
of
you're
it.
an elf, half of it.
Yeah, we closed on January 11th, I believe.
Well, this is very exciting to have you here. We are actually coming from the CMAC Zoom studio. Isn't that exciting? That's a pretty
Very
cool
excited.
thing to be able to say.
That's awesome.
So, Shawn, you had a busy 2021, even though there was a pandemic. So remind us your starring roles.
Oh gosh.
For GCP.
Yeah. So whenever we came back, when GCP came back in May of 2021, they opened with Nonsense, and then after that, I was in Daddy Longlegs with Meg Clark, which is just a beautiful 2-person show with terrific music. And I'm sure if you want to read the review, you wrote very well, very nicely about us.
It was a beautiful show. It didn't have the greatest title, I have to say. It was a hard title for me to remember, but the show itself was gorgeous.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think that perhaps a different title would have sold a few more tickets, but maybe people will remember it and we'll be able to do it in a few years again. But anyway, then we did Addams Family, and I wasn't in Addams Family, so I got a short break there. But then we came back and did Elf again. And we had done it in 2019, and we had plans to do it in 2020. Obviously, those plans were canceled, but we came back in 2021, and we had a really great, fun run. I have to say I'm honored to be at the top of your top 20 list for cultural events in Fresno, Donald. But yeah, I was really happy to be able to do the show again, honestly.
Well, and I think one thing that was really remarkable is that you gave 2 such different performances. I mean, it's almost hard to believe you're the same person. Describe what that was like. Like, I guess my question would be, if we could see Shawn backstage before Daddy Longlegs and compare him to Shawn backstage before Elf, would we have seen a big difference?
Totally. Actually, that's a really great question. I was talking about that with someone the other day, because in Daddy Longlegs, it was just Meg and I backstage for the whole call time. And then it was just us on stage for that whole time. And so you're sitting back there. We're good friends, of course, but we have 2 separate dressing rooms. And so we would go sit for about 20 minutes and chat and then say, see you later. And I'll see you on stage, basically. And so it was just a little more casual, very relaxed atmosphere. I would almost always review my lines, and I would almost always review my vocals, just because when you're there alone and you're on stage the whole time, you don't get to come off and review anything. So I was very much wanting to stay focused and in the show. The funny thing about Elf was I'd come back, I'd already done it once, so I knew it really well. And I know I've got to be excited. So every time I would come to call, I'd come upstairs with my partner Lyric, and I always have to go the specific way up, the way that where everybody is, because I've got to start my interactions and I've got to start, pumping up, because at 7:00 on a Friday night, we've all been at work and we're tired. So I get my iced green tea at Starbucks, and then I would just pretty much be a social butterfly to get ready and to get revved up to do Buddy the Elf.
And it was an incredible outlay of energy for you. I mean, I think I burned off extra calories just sitting there watching you on stage. What was it like for you after the show? After each performance? Yeah.
It's hard, I mean, we're theater people, so we're up late at night anyways, but to wind down from that was a huge, it'd probably take me 3 hours after the show once I get home. And then I'm ready to kind of get ready for bed and all that kind of stuff. So it's a late night doing Elf.
So it has been a tough year, a tough couple of years. You also work at Good Company Players,
right,
and you guys have had to go through a whole lot, even just in these last 3 weeks. What has that been like for you? And do you see things getting better?
That's a wonderful question. It's a scary question, really, because I don't know, obviously it seems like with Omicron, those people that are vaccinated are recovering, and they're recovering well, which is good. Those of us that are vaccinated a lot of us that are in theater are vaccinated. So it's good that we're looking out for each other and keeping each other safe. But it's hard, and it's stressful. As a performer, I'll just say that doing Elf was really stressful because I wanted to be there and I wanted to do it every night, but we're testing every week and sometimes twice a week if I was feeling particularly nervous or something, because I want to be there and I want to do my job. but it's a different time now, you know, and so I was fortunate enough to get to do it, but as you know, with Guys and Dolls, we did have to delay because a few people tested positive, and so I think that it's a time to be flexible. I think that it's a time to just breathe, and if everyone could just breathe and be kind to one another and be patient and say, we're going to get to that show. We're going to open it. Like with SpongeBob. I'm so glad that Selma's still going to do it. You know, it's unfortunate that they have to push it back to the summer. I was really excited to see it, but there's something to look forward to. You know, we've got to change our perspective. We've got to, because we're going to be living with this for a little while. So we have to keep it positive.
And it really puts a new emphasis on understudies, right? Understudies, standbys, because they suddenly become a huge part of the equation. And I know that there are a number of understudies playing right now for GCP, just because that's the way they've been able to keep those shows alive. Yeah.
And you know, we do a great job making sure our understudies are able to have a comfortable amount of performances in the rehearsal process, or run-throughs, that is, so that they can feel comfortable. But I did have all of this in mind. If I may mention that I'm directing Spelling Bee.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Now, will that be your GCP directorial debut?
It's complicated, again, because of the pandemic. So I was supposed to co-direct Freaky Friday with Steve Souza, and we had held auditions and we had cast it, and we were going into rehearsals in 2 weeks. And then everything closed down and we didn't end up bringing the show back. And so when Dan announced that they were going to do 25th annual, I was very eager to get my shot at being able to direct.
And for people who don't know about that show, the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee is the full title, and it is a darling, wonderful show. And is that going to be at Roger Rocca's or at Second Space?
It's going to be at Roger Rocca's.
Okay, so because I think last time GCP did it at Second Space, right?
Yes, it was about 10 or so years ago, and they did it for, I think, 4 months at the Second Space.
Yeah,
we're going to be a 9-week run at Roger Rocca's. We open on March 17th, so and we go into rehearsals next week. But when I was casting, I had a wonderful turnout, so I was able to have the opportunity to double cast, which at a time like this is great, because I can keep both of my casts separate, and then if somebody tests positive in cast A, then I can switch them out with cast B, the whole cast, you know, and so everyone's going to get a great performance, and it'll be fun.
Well,
and that is
the way to go.
Yeah. Of course, there's another aspect of it that's complicated, because that's a show where the audience comes up on stage too.
Yes.
So there's lots of exciting challenges.
Absolutely.
Had.
Well, Shawn, thank you again for joining us. It was a wonderful year for you, and I'm so glad that I was able to highlight that. You're very much appreciated for what you do and for all your talents.
Thank you. And let me say thank you, and that I sincerely appreciate you and everything that you've done for our community.
Well, we could just spend all day just thanking each other.
Yeah,
I know you have to get back to work. So again, thanks very much, and I am looking forward to Spelling Bee.
Thank you, Donald. See you there.
Okay.
Bye.
That wraps it up for this month's episode of the Munro Review. Be sure to keep up online at munroreview.com for previews, reviews, giveaways, profiles, and more. A big thank you to our volunteer crew, and a thank you to all our guests, Jesse Merrell and Shawn Williams. And for all of you, please keep exploring and supporting the local art scene. We'll see you next time.